Well, here we are again now, this time for a huge thought. How is innovation inside the country? Our next guest is a Portuguese private entity with over 50 years of experience. ISQ is involved in more than 500 international R&D projects with more than 1,200 national and international partners. To show the innovation level in our country, several ISQ team leaders gathered here today with us to present some of their best case studies held in Portugal. Please welcome Mrs. Anabela Bento, the Business Line Manager for Mobility, Smart Cities and Sustainability, Mr. Rodrigo Cunha, Manager and Engineering Integrated Systems and Special Projects, Mrs. Margarida Segard, National Coordinator of Impact Assessment, Mr. Paulo Chaves, the Head of ISQ's Aeronautics and Space Business Line and Lee Laboratory, Mr. João Ribau, the Director of R&D Intelligence and Digital Systems, and Mrs. Muriel, Iten, Intelligent and Digital Systems. This panel will from now on be conducted by Mr. Ricardo Rato, the Head of R&D and Innovation at ISQ, and I will see you later.
Hi, good morning to all, and thank you to Planetiers. It's really a great pleasure to be here with you and sharing our experience. This session is about innovation inside country, and we aim during this session to explain how ISQ, a national technology entity from this tiny country, is contributing to global sustainability. We will do an exciting journey through different sectors and projects where ISQ is delivering innovation, technology, and training at international level, sharing concrete examples of this transition to a more sustainable future happening today. I have with me 6 amazing colleagues from ISQ, and we will do a journey that will be composed by 2 rounds of questions to the panelists, covering this broad set of sectors, experience, technology, and non-technology aspects that are relevant to this transition. Let's start then our discussion, targeting the industrial sector. Industry is being very successful, improving their productivity through time. Today, industry is delivering goods at a relatively low costs and satisfying human needs. However, industry is a huge user of natural and energy resources. Therefore, Muriel, give us your experience in this industrial sustainability and some concrete examples of what industry are doing now for improving their sustainability.
Good morning, everyone. So indeed, we have a massive production nowadays of goods and services available to all of us, but that of course implies a massive consumption of resources. Industry consumption arounds approximately 20% of the total energy consumption in the world. And if we look closely, 98% is related with manufacturing industry. So manufacturing industry that will allow us to get all of these products, they rely on global traded raw materials. So looking at our patterns on production and consumption, according to the United Nations, if we keep our life standards as we are, we would need, by 2050, 3 Earths. On the other hand, there are researchers that go even further than that. They decided, well, actually, they claim that to keep our resources on a long run, we need to cut our consumption by 1/10. So linear consumption, or linear economy as we know it, and the linear economy that we live, that we can briefly describe as getting raw material transported into a factory, getting a product done, being sold to us. We use a product in a very short period of time and sending it to the landfill. This linear economy is not possible anymore. Therefore, all industries, industries to become competitive, they have to mandatory do some act and change the way they are using resources. So now getting to the second question. So in practice, how can we reduce this dependency on resources? There are different actions that we can actually implement, and industries have been doing it actually, starting by efficient manufacturing. At least in Europe, we have been seeing since the 90s, mostly due to policies, efficiency in manufacturing has been increasing in 1.5% every year, and ISQ in particular has been supporting national industries by doing so through auditing, energy auditing, consulting services, and R&D services. Our projects, the projects that we are involved, I will just quickly name one of them, has been actually helping us to support industries in reducing thermal energy consumption. Our national Ecotherm IP project has been enabling us to support industry reducing approximately 30% of their thermal energy. This has been accomplished by heat recovery solutions, optimization of thermal equipment, and storage applications. On the other hand, another action that industries have been implementing is looking at clean manufacturing, looking at using clean resources, renewable resources. ISQ has been supporting industries in using solar energy directly implemented in thermal processes. That also allows them to reduce their bill. And another action is, we call it as eco-efficient manufacturing, looking at reducing raw materials in production. How can industry reduce raw materials? By recycling or by reusing waste that they have just next door. So reusing the waste, they can reduce raw material. And last but not least, circular economy, aligned with the Green Deal that our Commission has just launched. So if we look at the circular economy applied to industry, we call it as industrial symbiosis. This has been our focus, a strong focus. ISQ has been working very intensely on this topic. And what we have been doing is we have been supporting industries in closing the loop of resources. And we can do it in two ways. We can either reuse our waste, or surplus, as we technically call it. You reuse the waste we have inside our own industry, or we can use that waste and sell it as a resource to a next industry or to a next municipality. An example of that is also our project, in Portuguese we call it E-Tijolo, but in English we call it Ecobrick. In this case, we know that municipalities are so they are not handling properly the waste of cigarette butts. They don't know what to do with that waste, and we are closing that loop by circulating that waste into a next nearby ceramic industry and supporting them in integrating that brick integrating that cigarette butt into the brick and produce eco bricks that can be used in construction, internal walls.
Thank you, Muriel. I think it's a really great example how industry can work together with municipalities and move into the transition to a more circular economy. And taking this opportunity, I will ask to Anabela your view on how cities are now addressing today the sustainability development and how the quality of life, how cities are addressing today sustainable development and the quality of life of citizens, please.
Okay, Ricardo. Good morning, everyone. Decarbonizing industries and cities have the same challenges. Some of them was Muriel has talked about them: transport, energy efficiency, implementation of codes, materials, circular economy, innovative technology, and integration. But I think major challenges are resilience and sustainability in economic, social, and environmental. The responsibility of urban development model is urgently enhancing the resources and promoting all the efficiency of its subsystems, energy, mobility, water, waste, and also improving the capacity to respond to risks and impacts, especially those related to climate change. ISQ is committed to these transitions, supporting project design, management in cities, integrating sustainable mobility, and providing services as risk analysis, carbon footprint analysis, and risk diagnosis. We also evaluate performance of cities under ISO 37120, which is a standard that has more than 100 indicators for city service and quality of life, from energy to education, from urban planning to health. That's our commitment.
Thank you, Anabela. And now we are moving from Earth to space. And I kindly ask to my colleague Paulo to share your vision how space is contributing for Earth sustainability.
Thank you, Ricardo. Good morning to everyone. Well, actually, space technology had a very important role in the mankind's environmental awakening, and this with two photos that are very known today. The first one is the Earthrise photo taken in 1968 by Apollo 8, I think, when she was orbiting the moon. And it's an amazing photo showing a small and shining blue planet rising above the moon horizon. This photo had a huge impact in everybody. At the time, it showed us Earth was a very fragile and small place. The second one is the pale blue dot photo taken in 1990 by NASA's Voyager 1 when she was beyond Neptune. And this is a very different photo. It shows Earth as a very small dot in the middle of nothing. And Carl Sagan described it beautifully. So this is the very beginning. Later on, we started having Earth observation sats orbiting Earth, monitoring the planet, looking for the planet, and this happened roughly at the same time that climate change became apparent. And these first generation of Earth observation sets were very important to verify, to confirm, to understand better how this first impression about climate change and vice versa. So the link, the intertwining between space technologies and sustainability and environment continued there. Nowadays, and we are going to talk about this in the second round, but we have much more different kinds of Earth observation sites, and those with all the upstream infrastructure that lies behind them are at the forefront of the climate change monitoring, either to understand better what's going on, because there are still a lot of things that we don't know or we don't understand well, and as well for mitigation measures that are even more important day by day. And of course, this will be instrumental to attain carbon neutrality up to 2050. Okay, ISQ has a very active role in this industry for several years. We are doing development of European space vehicles for more than 10 years, involved in different projects there. We have a permanent team in the largest open spaceport in the world, which is in French Guiana, for more than 15 years. And we are developing new services based in Earth observation data, such as identification of mineral resources at the seabed, that will contribute to cheaper batteries and more enhancing the electrification of automobiles, risk assessment and monitoring of assets and infrastructures, and with partners in Portugal and the US, developing satellite-based tech that will allow the recurrent monitoring of groundwater stocks. So this is what we are doing, and of course all this was possible because we have a virtuous loop of knowledge with other sectors such as big science. Rodrigo.
Thank you, Paulo. And now we are in our journey. We move from space to water. We will dive into the water, a precious and scarce resource. And I will kindly ask to João to guide us with your experience in this field, highlighting also some examples how technology can support better water decisions in water management.
Hi, good morning. Yes, water is a crucial resource, and we all know it, but it's always worth it to state once more how critical this resource is. This water is responsible for many issues in the world related to global health, ecosystems extinction, the food or agro-food value chain disruption, geopolitical problems, and it was stated by the United Nations that in 2017 almost 45 countries entered into war due to this precious resource. So it's a very critical resource, and also I would like also to state that it is in risk, and it is pointed also by the United Nations and the World Economic Forum as one of the top 10 risks to sustainable development of human beings. Almost for the last 10 years, it's pointed as the number 5 most impactant risk of all, like climate change. And although technology it's evolving and the wastewater treatment plants are evolving, likewise, it's still a finite resource. And not only the resource, but the secondary impacts, such as the energy needed to transport, to manage, to treat this resource. All around the world, it accounts near 5%, so it is a lot. And we must do something. The sustainability, it depends on these little things, and I mean little because most of us open the valve in the house and the water comes out and it's easy, but it's very critical. And we at ISQ are committed also to deal with this, to help this with several technology features. For instance, in space, we can use space from using satellites, Earth observation data from satellites or in situ sensors to measure where water is in most stress, for instance in agriculture fields, or illegal pollutant discharges in rivers or other water basins, or we can use artificial intelligence and optimization methods, some that Muriel also mentioned in industry, to optimize the water systems in order to reduce the environmental footprint, reduce costs, reduce energy, to operate better. So we need to do a lot, and fortunately technology can help us go further.
Thank you, João. And you mentioned that sustainability could be done by little improvements through the time in a continuous way, but also can be achieved through technology disruption. Rodrigo is part of the biggest international science project. Rodrigo, explain us how this huge project could change our life.
Hi, Ricardo. Thanks. We have seen in the last century the production of energy it was concentrated in big plants, hydraulic plants, gas plants, nuclear plants, the last ones. And in the last few years, what we see is the opposite. You see a decentralized production plants, little ones, photovoltaic plants with a small panels, aeolic wind generators, and so on. It's more democratized. So, in Europe, there are a developing project, a huge project named Iten. Do the opposite. It's concentrate again a big generator of the energy. Iten is a huge project, something like 30 billion euros. A project to be developed in the 30 years. It's beginning in 2006, I think, and is to produce a clean energy. It's not a nuclear plant with fission, but with fusion energy. It's completely different. It's something completely different. And what you are developed at this moment, Itera developed, is a demonstrator. It's not to produce energy, it's only to assure the concept works. So, this plant is built in Cadarache in the south of France, and only to see how big is that, there are more than 1 million parts to assembly. And the concept is a very simple concept with a fuel. There are everywhere, it's hydrogen, isotopes of hydrogen, plasma, deuterium, tritium. So, it's not radioactive, it's a very low radioactive and produce a small waste only. ITER is designed to produce a tenfold return on energy. What this can say? They say if you need 50 megawatts to start the production of energy, you get in the output 500 megawatts. It's very, very, very good. The conditions to do this is a very strong electromagnetic field, and we need high temperatures, above 150 million degrees Celsius, a plasma, and a very confined place. This is done in the tokamak reactor. So, nuclear fusions like this does not produce high activity or other long-lived nuclear waste. The fuel can be reutilized by 100 years, so we can do a closed cycle. It's I think very, very good to produce energy, clean energy. There are not greenhouse gas, no CO2, and the base of this concept is to reproduce what happens in the superficie of the sun. It's the same thing. It's the fusion of the isotopes of hydrogen. And what we get in output is helium, no big deal. Something the concept is very simple. To get this is very, very difficult. So it's that.
Thank you, Rodrigo. And after hearing all these examples related with technology, I will now pass the word to Margarida in order to explain us your vision about the importance of skills in this transition to a more sustainable future.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's just 1 minute for now. First of all, let me just say that it's quite strange to be here to look at this big room, conference room, with just a few people, and thank you for being there. But in another hand, it's so nice to know that this is a very, very big web streaming, and we are reaching thousands of people around the world and in Portugal and in our Europe. So, and this is really a sad moment, but in another hand, there are opportunities. And this is exactly why and how we are looking at these opportunities of creating green skills, of greening skills and greening people and greening companies and greening cities and organizations. And this is where ISQ is working, so concerning renewable energy, this kind of difficult, the nuclear energy, it's quite difficult to understand for some people, but actually we are always on the green side, on the good side of life and on the good side of business. And we are really proud, I'm really proud to be working with you at ISQ and with these consultants and try to transform this know-how that we have, which is quite innovative, into new skills, and in this new context of Green Deal, of these Sustainable Development Goals, in these new very, very ambitious goals till 2050 and till 2030, we need really to count first, of course, technology, it's absolutely important, but first of all, to count on people. And this is why we bring all this knowledge together, and believe me, mine is the less technological knowledge, but we need to do it with passion, and we need to do it counting on first people as accelerators of all what we are doing here in this conference, in this kind of events, in this kind of milestones to go faster and with more efficient way. So we know already there's a lot of studies, our colleagues mentioned a lot of studies. We know already that the most competitive companies are those ones who have made the digital transition and also the green transition. Not only because of very high and efficient KPIs, financially, of course, but also concerning the planet and also concerning people. And they are also where we can see more happiness inside. And they are more attractive, not only for shareholders, but also for the staff inside. And this is important because everything is about people. So ISQ is here to train people and companies from the basic level to the highest top level. And because we believe that this step forward, a lot of them can only be achieved if we democratize the green skills. It's not a question of skilling and upskilling the elite. We need to go through the basics and consider that green skills must exist in all jobs, in all functions, like a mandatory skills and transversal skills. We start to call it fluid skills. And we need to, everyone, to have it in our backpack and bringing to all the companies, all the cities, and on the places where we are producing, creating, and developing. This is a little bit our message from ISQ.
Thank you, Margarida, and all the colleagues for the sharing from this first round. Now we are moving for the second round, which will be focused more on future. And I will start again with Muriel, namely to ask you to share your vision about the future of industrial sustainability and what you think that the industries will do in the future and how they will change their models.
Well, that's a difficult question. Very difficult question, but well, I believe that companies such as ISQ and other engineering and consultancy companies should strongly support industries. Industries should look for such companies and ask support in improving to become greener and digital. As I mentioned earlier, there are different sort of services that we can provide, namely efficient manufacturing, clean manufacturing, eco-efficient manufacturing, and circular manufacturing that are needed to become greener while digital. And these are definitely competences that they need or requirements that industry needs to become, well, to grow. Especially traditional industries, they will need that to grow and to become competitive. Because, as mentioned, resources are limited and they will need to be on track. They will need to do more with less. And investment in R&D definitely will be needed. At the same time, up-to-date infrastructure would be needed to be allied to that. Supply of clean, secure, and safe energy needs to be a guarantee so we can have sustainability. On the other hand, investment on low carbon technologies is something that we cannot not forget about, as well as a more strategic approach on renewable technologies for industries. That's something, at least on a national context, we have been seeing very little, but especially Portugal and other Mediterranean countries, we have the sun out there over 200 days a year, so why not using solar energy to supply to our processes, industrial processes. Moreover, smart sector integration, we have been listening to it recently with the hydrogen, clean hydrogen. I think that's something we could also look at to make our industry more sustainable. And last but not least, very aligned with my colleague Margarida, she was just telling, skills and reskilling are very, very important, especially in this digital era, because competitive industry relies deeply on recruiting and keeping qualified workforce.
Thank you, Muriel. Thank you. And we are now moving again to cities and thinking about the future of cities. The cities are becoming bigger and bigger, and it is foreseen that by 2050, around 70% of the world population we will live in cities, and this will be, I think, a challenge, but most probably also an opportunity, and therefore I would like to ask to Anabela, what is your vision about this concentration of population in cities? Will be either an opportunity or a challenge?
Yes, Ricardo, it's a big challenge. Today, almost 5 million people live in cities, as you said, and it is expected that 6 billion will move to cities in 2050. It is clear that actual resources are not enough for this growth. I think all of us know that. Cities constantly deplete the planet's resources to feed us and grow. More than 70% of the world's waste comes from urban areas. As well, about 60% of global energy consumption and more than 70% of greenhouse gases. The greenhouse gases are the main responsible for climate change, as you know. So how may we grow without destroy the planet? It's a big challenge. We can only live in pollution-free cities until 2050 if we reduce our carbon footprint and if cities become more inclusive, resilient, sustainable, and smart, as the 11th Sustainable Development Goal advocate. And we have to change paradigm. From smart cities to smart regions and to smart nations. and it is not enough to talk about smart cities and smart nations without talking about digital nations, as Margarida mentioned before, and happy nations. We must include all the citizens and empower them with use of digital technologies and make them use it without thinking and in a happy way, if it's possible. Only with the involvement of governments, companies, citizens, mayors, all together we will implement sustainable nations, cities, regions, and happy nations. We must act now and all together.
Thank you, Anabela. We are now moving again to space, and we are seeing in the last days an increased interest of the private sector in space. We are seeing thousands of new satellites launches from companies such as Amazon, OneWeb, Telesat, and also interests from the private sector to space exploration, and with some popular examples of SpaceX and Blue Origin. Paulo, what is your thoughts in this movement? It is a threat or an opportunity to sustainability?
Thank you, Ricardo. It's a huge opportunity. Well, access to space is nowadays much easier, either in terms of funding, either in terms of skills and expertise than it was a couple of decades ago. The reduction is of several orders of magnitude, so it's a huge, it's much easier really. What was only available to superpowers and huge companies in the 60s, 70s of last century now can be done by small countries, by SMEs, by universities, and this is where lies the opportunity. Is that to tackle all these threats of climate change, we don't right now. We can act without waiting for government decisions, because smaller communities are able to identify an issue and taking action, and they can organize themselves in a way that they can design, assemble, and launch a satellite or a constellation of satellites, and then exploit the data, taking all the necessary interpretation of the data that they are getting. And this means that these smaller communities can today build up specialized observation networks and delivering global awareness of issues that are very important for all of us in terms of climate change, but are well observed and identified at a very local level. And of course, this global awareness can benefit not only this small community, but can benefit all the communities that around the world have the same kind of problem. One good, I'm just saying a small example of this, related with one of the projects where ISQ is involved, which is related with, as I was saying beforehand, one of the interests is to monitor the groundwater stocks. So we are talking about the water that is beneath the soil. This is when we are talking usually in Earth observation satellites, we think about to see the sea, to see the forests, to see the cities. But this technology allows us as well to see beneath the soil, to see what is happening below, and which is equally very important to understand and to tackle climate change. And this kind of the identification of this kind of of need is at local level, but can go global following the action of a small group, of a small community.
Thank you, Paulo. You are mentioned that space assets will generate a huge amount of data, then this data could be very helpful for tackle the sustainability issues at a global level. And I think AI, artificial intelligence, will for sure have a role on this field. And João, being you an enthusiasm and expert on this field, how do you see the future of AI for supporting this path to sustainability?
Well, AI, first of all, gave us, as human beings, the ability to see through large quantities of data, to learn with large volumes of data, with more capacity, more understanding, and much more quicker than the human being looking at some Excel sheets, for instance. And where does this data comes from? Well, this data nowadays, and fortunately due to technology we have among us, comes from satellites, for instance, remote sensing like satellites or drones, comes from IoT, in industries, in cities. So we have large quantities of data about everything if we want. And it cannot be possible a human to look at millions of values, images, and understand one object or a pattern in this data. So, and why do we need this? We need this because we want to understand physical systems. We want to understand an industrial system. We want to understand how this system can behave, predict anomalies, defects, be more prepared, better planning, better scheduling of operations, and all of this help us to be more sustainable by reducing waste, be more prepared to reduce waste, be more prepared to minimize the environmental footprint, reduce costs. Obviously, is very useful for companies, but aside of that, always looking to an environmental side and energy consumption. Some examples of that, just to be more objective and looking again for the satellite data, we can use this data, images or data from multispectral bands like infrared, to learn and see vegetation indexes, chlorophyll, carotenoids, reflectance in agricultural crops. And this can indicate us water stress zones. And then we can see, okay, this zone needs more water, or this crop needs more water than other ones. So we try to aim here the best fit per use, not irrigate all the same way, just be there when it is more needed, and in this way trying to be more efficient in irrigation and in using the water resource. We can also use the same data to predict plagues, diseases, some issues in agriculture crops, try to put to the farmer available risk maps and teach him how can a disease or plague or even water stress can evolve in a certain way in a certain zone. Or looking at a more specific system, the water networks in cities now, smart cities, we can predict the water consumption from populations, from municipalities, and in this way, again, be more ready, be more prepared, plan better the pumping stations in order to reduce the energy used in the water supply networks. But we have all of this technology, and most of the mathematics behind this technology, well, it was already there in the 70s. So what what are we making wrong? What it is missing? Well, I think that the future, besides technology, passes also through other things like governance, regulatory awareness, political issues. And I like also to state one thing that the World Business Council and Sustainable Development put it outside. It was the Sustainable Development Compass that I think we may use this for implementing all of the technologies and make sure that we have success cases. And how is this works? Well, it is a simple procedure, but usually we miss this. And the procedure is simple as that. So we must understand the problem and just not use tools and technology available per se. We must understand the problem, define priorities, and define the real objectives that we want to attain, and then select the technologies like artificial intelligence, intelligent optimization, satellite, if we really need it, okay? Then, okay, we must implement it, report, and then pass to a final phase, which is redesign or redefine. We must have feedback of our case studies. We must have feedback of all of the technology implemented in the world, because we need probably to redesign all of the things again, and due to this feedback, learn better and implement even better, evolving. So not only the technology must evolve, but us also must evolve, and in the way we implement the technology must also evolve. And this is, I think, more simple things than inventing artificial intelligence. We must listen to failures and successes in the same way.
Thank you, João. And picking your words regarding our aim to understand the things, I will back again to big international projects, and I will kindly ask to Rodrigo to share another relevant project where ISQ is participating in, and where the aim is also to create knowledge for the future.
Thanks, Ricardo. The enrichment of knowledge through the study of the universe, its evolution and constant transformation, will always be useful to understand our evolution and prepare our future. So, another big project. It is a ELT, Extremely Large Telescope. Or, let's say, looking at the universe, what this can be useful to us in Earth. It's, I have spoken a few minutes ago about Iten, and Iten, they use the fusion of the plasma, and this is the same process happens in the sun, and this it was observed some years ago, and understand how the sun has our energy about millions of years. It was that we want to reply in Earth, have a constant and long-term energy disponible. So the telescope, we are going to be a bigger telescope in Earth. Is very, very big. There is a primary mirror with 39 meters, and ELT allows to see better, sharper and farther than anyone built at the moment. It was the largest optical near-infrared telescope. Will get 3 times lighter than the largest optical telescope existing today. The ELT will be able to correct for the atmosphere distortions. It's a complicated process. It adapts every time the distortion makes by the atmosphere. It provides 16 times sharper than those from the Hubble Space Telescope. So it's 16 times better. DLT will vastly advance astrophysical knowledge by enabling detailed studies of planets around other stars, the first galaxies in the universe, supermassive black holes, and the nature of the universe's dark sector. It's another big project, and what ISQ, a Portuguese company, does in this kind of projects, ITER, CERN, ELT, and then others, and the space, and then others. What we do? We do consultancy in welding, electrical, and different areas. We do also formation, and we work also in the quality departments, quality assurance. We have at this moment in the special projects we have 26 persons around the world working in these big projects. It's very, very good for us, and it's proud to lead this team. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Rodrigo. A lot of knowledge involved in these projects, for sure. And it's of course, we are very proud of these projects. And we are approaching now the end of this panel discussion, and I will now move again for skills, learning and training. And I will ask to Margarida how it's your vision about the future of learning and training methods, and also what are the skills that you think will be more important in the future?
Thank you, Ricardo. Indeed, I know that I only have 1 minute, right? So we need to lock up. Okay, but the last but not the least, because once again, in this kind of transformation, people comes first, and we need people for that. And yes, you are right. We need, first of all, because of these goals, not only concerning sustainability, but also digitalization, because I believe they must come together. And in the next 5 years, we'll have at European level a lot of common routes and a lot of common KPIs concerning these new, two pillars, and we believe that they will merge in a lot of ways, in a lot of KPIs, and we are glad about it. And this is exactly what we need to do in training, in education, and in learning. We need to move more and faster. Otherwise, we'll not achieve. If we continue to have business as usual or learning as usual, we are not able to achieve more than 20% of the European goals that are planned for 2030, and more than 40% of the European goals concerning sustainability that are planned for 2050. So, if we don't do it, we'll not achieve, we'll fail, and will be unhappy and very unhappy. So this is exactly what we need, and we need to create a lot of new education models where we can have a balance between the web, the online methodologies. It's not just to transform what was physical to online platforms. We need to reshape everything, because it's stupid if we do like this, just a transference. It's wrong, because we need to work differently when we have this kind of physical and online. It's more paperless. This saves a lot of energy. The mobility saves. You can create access for all, just in time, anywhere, like we are doing here. So, and we need to see the bright side of this. And we need to have teachers, trainers, companies. Companies are very suspicious about about online training. They are not investing only in physical training. So, and we need to do a lot of work. It's not only in Portugal, it's everywhere in Europe, and we know that. So, I mean, individuals are more investors in themselves than companies concerning these new online methodologies. In another hand, we need to invest more in skills, in these new innovative skills for all our researchers, for all our technicians and leaders in companies, champions of change in companies. It's not possible to change or to transform a business without having this sustainability scope. And that's why we all need new green skills to have a clear evidence about the impact of our decisions, to create new alternatives. We can do it as is, but we could run through third and second and fourth alternative to looking at new arguments. We need to convince ourselves and convince the others. And we need to, and this is our last word, we need to democratize green skills. Otherwise, if we don't change the culture through education and through these people, which are the accelerators of the next step for sustainability, we'll not achieve. And we need you, we need all of us, and this is our way to move forward, doing some influence making at European level, at international level, but also with our stakeholders and decision makers, especially in cities, which are very important in this process. So thank you.
Thank you, Margarida, and all colleagues for your wonderful examples of real sustainability projects happening today, and also for your enthusiastic vision on the path to a more sustainable future. And I hope this session, it was valuable to you and also inspiring, and for the creation of this engagement to a more sustainable future. And I would like also to challenge you to visit our stand, either physically or remotely. Thank you.